Welcome, everybody, to episode 15 of the Thundercrafts podcast, where we forge through the shitstorm that was WCW Thunder. I am your host, and a 6.5 in the last quarter hour, Josh Kaiser. And joining me today, not your dog spot, not a liver spot, not Arn Anderson spot, Josh Haddix.
What is good, everybody?
And the man who is a total mark for his own publicity, Mr. Kyle Hoagland.
Wait, who the fuck said that? Oh, that was Macho Man. Sorry, I completely forgot about that. What's up, everybody?
What is going on? How are you guys doing today?
Pretty good.
I was definitely looking forward to this Thunder just because of all the last probably 4 days of WCW has been basically just turned up on its head. So I was very, very excited about talking about this Thunder. This is definitely a Thunder that I'm more or less like. There's got to be something to talk about. Obviously, this is not going to be a throwaway show.
It is. Okay, so you're right. It's April 22nd. It's 1998. We got to set the stage here. It is the follow-up Thunder to Spring Stampede 1998. Of course, last week, if you guys are following along, we had a big world title match: Sting versus Macho Man at Spring Stampede. DDP and Raven are fighting for the U.S. title, with the winner facing Goldberg the following night on Nitro.
Sucks to be whoever won, right?
Of course, Chavo Guerrero was wrestling Ultimo Dragon. I mean, just match after match, that just all kinds of things going on.
I like that was the third place.
So we have to get into it and really kind of digest what has happened on Spring Stampede, and now, maybe who our champions are coming into Thunder. So we got severe weather storms because Thunder is brewing in Columbia, South Carolina, according to Tony. Of course, Lee Marshall, Bobby Heenan, switching seats, but still out there on the commentary team. Kyle,
I'm glad you noticed it, too. It was weird.
I know you were really bothered by it. Me, not so much, but I did notice it. And the commentary team lets us know that Goldberg is 75-0 and is your United States champion as he defeated Raven. So, Haddix, how do you feel about Raven being a 24-hour champion?
It's the best he deserves. Well, let me ask you this: did either of you watch it? I meant to watch at least that match on Nitro. Did any of you watch it?
I actually watched. Believe it or not, I watched Spring Stampede. I watched Nitro, which I know is kind of a cardinal sin for this show, but I watched Nitro because to be honest, I wanted to see that, and I wanted to see the follow-up with the world title picture, which we'll discuss as the show goes on. So, yes, I did see that.
Was it a good match, or did Goldberg just beat the crap out of him?
It was an okay match. It's funny, it's like I remember seeing, this is really the dawn of like my Monday Night Wars watching period as a kid or teenager. How was 98? So 13? Yeah,
13.
Teenager. So I do remember this. This is about the point I started watching. So I remember that match. I guess at the time I didn't realize Raven had won the title just the night before. I think in my mind I thought Raven had been champion for a while. So it was an okay match. I will say Goldberg versus Saturn, which happened the night before at Spring Stampede. Fantastic match. Arguably one of Goldberg's best, if not his best match of all time, I think. So if you guys have not
and we already know there's over 100 matches that we know they're cataloged. So that's a good sell.
That is true. But if you guys have not seen it, do yourself a favor. At least go back and watch that Saturn Goldberg match. If you're going to watch one match from Spring Stampede. So let's just get into it, though. The show's going to open up. Eric Bischoff, the Disciple, and your world champion Hulk Hogan come out. Of course, Sting and Macho Man.
Of course, he's the world champion, right?
And and Hogan somehow ends up as world champ. We'll discuss it as they start to tell us more about it. They get in the ring. Disciple's going to get the spray paint out. He's spraying that big gold belt with the NWO, which is kind of an iconic look, I think, during this era, having the NWO spray painted on there when Hogan was the champ. So I do appreciate that.
Which, by the way, traditionalists hated when they first started doing this.
Which I love it. That's what I'm saying. I thought that's how you get great heat. You have these people that, this is your, this is the classic, big gold belt, right? NWA, the whole 9 yards. And they desecrated it by spray painting it. That's great work right there.
I'm sure Bischoff would appreciate that, Kaiser.
Well, he appreciates that, and he's also going to appreciate Hogan as he basically gets on the mic, cuts a promo how about everyone at Turner is afraid of Hogan. Hogan's going to get on the mic and basically say that all of the NWO is celebrating his victory today. He said they're all basically out in the back celebrating together. Of course, there's a whole, feud between him and Nash and Macho, but Hogan says everything's okay. So, who are we to believe? That said, Hogan does cut on Macho Man. Basically says he retired Macho Man on Monday, and he calls him Scarecrow Hair, which made me laugh.
So Pot calling the kettle black there, right?
Yeah, right. Now, I will, Haddix, give you credit. After I watched this promo, and I enjoyed heel Hogan. I thought Hollywood Hogan was a great character. His promos, at least on Thunder, have really kind of been gibberish and all over the place. And I thought this one was just like, if you really go back and digest like what he says, it doesn't make any sense from the sentence he said before and the sentence before that. Like, it just doesn't flow well and doesn't make a lot of sense when you start breaking it down. So I think you were onto something when you've been pointing that out in previous episodes.
Oh yeah, and I don't know, you guys are more familiar with Hogan and WWE or F at the time or whatever, and I guess I don't know if he's different on Nitro and all that kind of stuff. But this has been the first time I've really heard him week in and week out talking, cutting promos, and I'd say the majority of them are not the greatest. They're not horrible. But
I think the disadvantage was back in the day. I mean, he wasn't on TV multiple times a week cutting promos. Where back in the day, like you can get away with kind of being kind of like jacked and excited and kind of just talking off the cusp and being able to say your spiel, and then a month later you have another time where you get to talk and maybe you have some extra things to discuss. But here, and this has been what's been going on in like almost every week on Thunder, he basically gives the same promo.
It's very redundant
every week,
but it's all jumbled. It's just a jumble.
Well, that's the thing too. They don't write. He's old school wrestling. Like they don't write.
I understand.
He has his own control with his creative. He doesn't have writers. He figures it out.
So does Macho Man, and Macho Man's a little loopy, and he's cuts better promos than at least at this point in time on Thunder. I can't speak for anything else because that's all I'm watching. But anyway.
You make a good point, though. So I'll be continuing to pay closer attention to Hogan's promos going forward. Speaking of which, we're going to get a replay from Nitro, which is they're going to start to do what they did the past couple Thunders, and we're going to see clips throughout the show of what happened on Nitro and promos being cut, and this is no different. And basically, it's from this past Monday night where it's Hogan saying, "I'm the leader of the NWO," and tells Macho Man that he only won because of Kevin Nash, which is true. Nash did interfere in that world title match between Sting and Macho Man, which was a no DQ match at Spring Stampede. He helps Macho win the match, and Hogan basically says he wants a shot at the title. It seems kind of weird that they're showing these replays like this, knowing that we already know the finish and that Hogan is champ, but this is how they're...
And you would assume at the time, if you're a fan enough to watch Thunder, you watch Nitro, so you already saw all this. You know what I mean?
The big problem is you have the Hogan promo at the beginning of the show, like Kaiser said, and then now we're going to piece together what he's talking about.
Right.
Like it would make more sense. Like let's either do the whole thing at the beginning,
for a little bit, right, and then Hogan
and
comes
then
out
let him
as champ.
gloat afterwards. But now we already know the ending. It's like a Tarantino film.
It's a good analogy. After this, we get a replay from basically Macho Man's, rebuttal on Nitro, where he says that, calls Hogan the wheelman and says nothing's going to stop me from wrestling you tonight. Of course, the whole story being Macho Man was basically dead in his match with Sting, and here he is having to defend the title less than 24 hours after winning it. Then we're going to move into our opening match of the night. The television title is on the line. Booker T defending it against Disco Inferno. This is a pretty good match, I think, for an opening match. Worthy spots to note. Disco Inferno is going to sell a fake knee injury, which Booker T is going to fall for hook, line, and sinker.
But the commentary doesn't even tell the story. Tony calls out on Disco's bullshit right at the start.
Does.
Like, come on, Tony.
Does. Tony's like, nope, I'm not buying this at all. But Booker T did, and Booker T's also going to take a pile driver for that, which I love. A lot of us, when we write our notes, we call out, a few spots here or there or something noteworthy. All of us called out the pile driver. It's like seeing a 4-leaf clover, I think, these days. Like, you see the pile driver, you gotta note, like, nice.
Right. If the 4-leaf clover could break your neck.
Yeah. We'll save that little spoiler for later, right?
Oh, God.
Too soon.
Sorry.
Booker T, of course, is going to hit his basically 5 moves of doom there at the end, including a great sidewalk slam, whatever you want to call it these days, and eventually the spinneroonie, the missile drop kick for the win. I gave it 2.5 stars. I thought it was a great opening match. I thought Booker looked good, and I thought, Disco, handled himself well in that role, and it was a clean finish, which I really am coming to appreciate on Thunder.
Right, that's the other 4-leaf clover of the show, is a clean finish. I gave it 2 3/4 stars. I once again, too, a good, solid opening match, which I think the Thunder, I don't think it's something that we pay a whole lot of attention to, but I found that this is definitely like an Eric Bischoff thing, where I think he likes to start off shows with a reasonably athletic and, talent. And it's hard for me to say that and say Disco Inferno in the same sentence, but in this particular match, he actually did fine. He didn't look bad. There was no real mess ups. I even had to give commentary the benefit there that they were actually commenting this match, which can be really hard when you have so much to talk about at the beginning of the show. But they did focus a little bit about talking about Bret Hart, which I don't think we really mentioned too much yet about. But they're definitely not big fans of Bret Hart. I'm sure we'll talk about that later for exactly why. But they did. They paid enough attention to the match, which was honestly a pretty good match.
I give it 2 3/4 stars as well. I don't really have much else to add. I thought I might have to watch it again. I actually thought they spent a little too much time not talking about the match, but you're right. They did talk with the whole knee thing, like we just talked about. So they did. Well,
I feel like as soon as they start doing when Booker T starts doing the moves of doom, I think it's once again. I've always kept on saying that the commentator booth kind of reacts the same way the crowd does. If the crowd doesn't seem to be totally into it, they don't seem to be into it. But as soon as the crowd starts popping for stuff, then they start really getting into the match. And there was a lot of moments here where there was enough to talk about.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
After this, we're going to get a third replay of the night, and this is going to be during Macho Man and Hogan's title match on Nitro, and it's just showing Hogan using a chair on Savage. As we come to find out, this match is no disqualification as well, and that's about all we see there. We follow this up with a Barbarian Prince Iaukea match. Of course, Jimmy Hart accompanying Barbarian. Haddix, you were confused by that. Barbarian and Ming were tag partners for quite some time, and Jimmy Hart was our manager throughout that period of time.
I gotcha.
It's not a surprise that Jimmy Hart's coming out with Barbarian here.
Gotcha. This is the first time we've seen Barbarian on Thunder, isn't it?
I'm trying
to
think. I feel like he's been on there
one
at least
time
once before.
Ming beat, I think it was Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and he wouldn't release the Tongan Death Grip, so they brought Barbarian out.
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
And then he attacked Barbarian.
But we haven't seen him wrestle anybody.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I do remember what you're talking about. Yeah, okay, I'm with you.
Of course, the big stories they're pushing here is Barbarian's on the warpath all of a sudden recently. They're all asking where Ming has been, where he's at. Apparently, he's been MIA for some time.
It's definitely been a deep-setted storyline that has been mentioned many times during our
right.
Apparently,
exactly. I will say I was impressed. It took 1 minute and 35 seconds from Prince Iaukea walking out before they let us know he was a former television champion. And this match ends fairly quickly with what they call the kick of fear. It might be the worst kick to the face I think I've ever seen. And the match caught me off guard. I had to literally rewind it to say, how did this match end? Because it was like a kick, and he's down, he counts it, and the match is over. I gave this 1.25 stars. I thought the match was a waste of time. I thought the ending was really bad. This kick of fear looked like garbage. And Prince Iaukea getting completely buried after his recent role and title match that he failed to win on Spring Stampede.
Yeah, I gave this 1.5 stars. I no joke. Was watching the match. I went to type something that I something that happened in the match, and then all of a sudden I hear the announcer go, "Oh, that's the end of the match." And I was like, "What the fuck just happened?" Like there wasn't even any. I didn't even see the kick to the head type of deal. All I saw was him punch. He kept punching his leg over and over again, and then just
he
pinned
was
him.
definitely attacking that leg for.
Yeah, I thought I agree with you. I thought this was weird. I thought it was weird that they buried him like this so bad after they've seemingly been pushing him pretty hard. I didn't understand what this was.
I was a little nicer, but I gave it a star and 3/4. I do see what they're trying to do with Barbarian. They seem to be focusing on this whole idea that this guy has this renewed aggression and malice, and I guess it makes sense for him to win. But I just don't understand why they chose Prince Iaukea, who was a guy that basically was on a nice win streak. They were talking about how he, has gone, a lot of consecutive wins. He earned, his match with Chris Jericho. I thought they had a kind of a half decent kind of hastily put together feud with the whole thing with him being too fat to be a cruiserweight and all that stuff. I thought it would at least earn him maybe one more match on a Nitro or maybe the next pay-per-view, like a triple threat for the Cruiserweight. Just give him one more, go at it. But he just got completely buried here. Once again, looks like this is going to lead to a Ming return. But once again, I feel like they could have picked anybody else other than somebody who I think has been 7-1 in the last 8 weeks of wrestling.
Yeah, I guess my only guess here would be it's almost like they wrapped up the story arc on Prince Iaukea with the Jericho thing, and man, he can just throw him out there to the wolves. We're gonna push this Barbarian story now. Not that I necessarily agree with that, but I think that may be the route they're going. So we'll have to see. But you're right, Kyle. It does sound like Barbarian versus Ming is happening in the nearby future. After this, we can get our fourth replay of the night. It is some action from Spring Stampede where DDP and Raven are wrestling around the Wells Fargo wagon and jumping into some hay. And they follow that up with a WCW Saturday Night promo that they just aren't even trying on anymore. They're letting us know that Rick Steiner and Scott Norton will be wrestling. The Barbarian will continue his reign of terror. And we're going to get a replay in its entirety, which is probably 3 minutes, of Goldberg winning the United States title on Nitro against Raven, which actually, for those, if somebody missed Nitro, this would be a good reason to watch Saturday night, I guess. So we'll have to see that. Following that, they're going to give us our fifth replay of the night, which is back to the Macho Hogan match from Nitro, which again, they're jumping all around with these promos and replays. And basically Macho Man's whipping Hogan with his own belt. And Macho Man's going to get up, hit the elbow drop, favoring his knees. They're showing that he's got some knee issues, and that's it for now. And then we're going to get into match of the night for many reasons, I suppose. Buff Bagwell and Scott Norton, accompanied to the ring by, of course, their lovely valet, Vincent.
The DQ machine himself.
Wrestling Luger and Rick Steiner with their valet, Mr. Ted DiBiase. This match starts out, before the match starts, you get Buff taunting the camera. Haddix, you noted how much you dig his little arm swaying move.
Dude, I fucking love it. And he does it all the time, right?
All the time,
but
yeah.
I think it's hilarious.
It's one of the best taunts in the video games. If you're ever Buff Bagwell, if there's anything good about him, it's his finisher and any of the taunts.
Those taunts are pretty awesome.
It's so animated, and he does it so well. I enjoy it every time.
It is smooth. What I did not enjoy, and I almost felt like I had to take a shower, was when Lex decides to taunt into the camera, and he starts by flexing his tits, which is something he's done in the past, no big deal. And then he eye fucks and smiles like a creep to the camera.
Yes.
What was that?
Did you appreciate all the pictures I sent you in my notes?
So, Hoagie, yes. Funny story. I'm finishing my notes, and I'm in the car. I was parked. I was waiting for some coworkers to get to this plant that we were going to, and I had a guy in the car with me. And I'm scrolling through your notes, and I'm copying over, and I scroll down, and I have a photo shoot of Lex winking and looking at the camera, and I start cracking up, and I'm like, if he looks over, he's gonna be like, what the hell are you looking at right now? Otherwise, I would have dropped him in right now, but I couldn't have dropped it. I had to tab over and not put him in there, but otherwise those pictures would have been put right here. 'Cause I know you took some time.
Alex, if you got a second, just for laughs. I actually just shared you the document, my actual notes to Kaiser that he puts in here. That has those pictures. If you want a good laugh.
It is pretty funny. Going back to the match itself, it's a little back and forth. Of course, Lex is going to, earlier into the match, call for the torture rack, which is still one of the most moves with the fans. They're hyped for that. But as he's calling for the torture rack, Rick decides he's going to come into the ring and distract the ref, which is going to let Buff come in and stop it. It was weird, I thought. Like, I feel like Buff should have started to come in, and then Rick could have came in. I feel like they timed that wrong. Needless to say, the torture rack doesn't happen. Buff's going to continue to taunt throughout the match. Rick Steiner's going to eventually get in and start back body dropping everyone, clearing the ring. And then Buff's going to get set up. Rick's going to go to the top for that top rope bulldog he does. But Vincent's going to come with a chair, and you're thinking, oh, here comes the DQ. But no, Scott Steiner out of nowhere grabs the chair from Vincent, which pops the crowd. Rick Steiner's going to hit the bulldog, and then Scott Steiner's going to run into the ring and hit Rick with the chair. This is weird to me. Before we get into the match ends at that point. Basically, the ref doesn't see it. He's going to put Buff Bagwell on Rick Steiner for the 3
Sort
count,
of,
which we'll talk about in a minute.
Right.
But from kayfabe standpoint, why would Scott Steiner stop Vincent from hitting him with the chair? If he wants to do it, then he should have done it on the top rope instead of letting. Why does he let Rick Steiner execute his finisher to his NWO friend before attacking him with the chair? Like, if you're gonna get a chair shot, why don't you just let Vincent hit him with the chair?
Hey, it's all about that storytelling, all right? We all thought, oh my God, is Scott Steiner turning a new leaf? Maybe he cares about his brother, doesn't want Vincent to do it. He just wants to. I think he just wanted to maybe think for a second that Rick Steiner maybe saw that he was helping him, thought that he was, safe to pin. Because I think that if he saw Scott being out there, I don't think he probably would have pinned Buff. I think he probably would have went after Scott Steiner. But if Rick noticed that his brother helped him by pulling the chair away, maybe he thought he could get a clean pin.
But
so
if
that's
Rick
when Scott
doesn't pay
struck.
attention and Vincent just hits him with a chair, this never happens.
I'll say, yeah, I think this is just bad storytelling. Because I got to admit,
That's the only part that's weird to me.
Yeah, for a second I was like, oh my God, like he's stopping him. I thought it was going to be a new storyline, but then no, he hits him, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was pointless. I think it was just WCW, doing their awesome Thunder storytelling.
That said, we'll get into our match rating, and then we'll move on to what happens afterwards. I gave it 2.25 stars. I thought the match was solid. Like I already went on and on about the ending. I thought it was a little different from the kayfabe standpoint. But otherwise, I thought it was a pretty good heel versus face tag team match here with the 4 contestants in this match.
I gave it 2 3/4. I almost say borderline 3, but once again, I think I'm also rating this higher just because of the significance of the match more than the match itself. And I try to separate myself from that kind of thing. But all 4 guys showed up, and I thought they did well. I think everybody, all the guys that were in there, whatever it is that they're good at, I think it was in full force, which obviously Buff's is just being an absolute a-hole, which was, once again, we all enjoy watching, which is another reason why this is such a sad match. The match was interesting. It had some decent story progression regarding Rick's mission to get his revenge on the NWO, for the fact that that's why I think he's trying to take out Buff. But at the same time, the match had some real significance as far as Buff Bagwell. We'll talk about that later. But once again, it really takes a lot away from Buff Bagwell. I think Buff Bagwell really had an honest to God. He had a lot of heat. I think he really was probably one of the more talked about wrestlers, especially in the NWO, but even just in the company itself.
He's got a lot of signs in the crowd every week.
Yes,
so,
that's what I mean. Like he's up there now as far as just having a good, I guess, fan presence, whether it's heat or not,
good or bad. Right? Yeah, he's there.
Right. So the fact that this match ended the way it did, it's kind of a shame.
I gave it 2.25 as well, Kaiser. I was about to rate it lower and go off on a rant about how the double pin was not executed correctly, but we find out why, and we can talk about that now.
Yeah, so bouncing off what you said first before we get into it is I thought the same thing, because I'm like, man, why isn't Buff being put on him a little bit more? And then the ref counts 3, and then the commentary team's not sure who won the match, and they're like, I saw his shoulders down too, and I'm like, this is really weird. Like, are they trying to execute a double pin on a meaningless tag match on Thunder? And
did this not occur to you at all when you saw who was wrestling this match?
It's so funny. No, Kyle. I'm well aware of this whole this is a big deal at the time, right?
The moment I saw Rick going to the top rope to perform on Buff, I'm like, oh my God, is this the match?
It didn't even click to me. Mark Curtis runs, they're like, Mark Curtis is running away, and then he comes back and raises
Scott
Norton's hand, and I'm like, what is he doing? I was like, this was so random. What is this? Then they cut to a replay of Kevin Nash powerbombing Hogan and laying Savage on top of Hogan. So that's a good segue, guys.
Yeah, that's how you show how it's supposed to work.
Right. We come back from commercial, and Buff's still laying in the ring, and then that's when I said, oh, shit, this is the infamous Buff Bagwell basically getting paralyzed from the botched Bulldog spot. I don't know why it never dawned on me at all during that moment. And then I kind of cleared everything else. That explains why Buff was like talking when they were trying to pull him over on top of Rick, and why there was like a half-assed, pin attempt there. And so obviously, Haddix, this is all news to you, but Buff Bagwell, as we'll come to see as they kind of do this for the next, I timed it 23 minutes, I believe was the total. From start to finish on WWE Network time, I should say. But it's probably, you're looking at probably 40 or 45 minutes of this 2-hour show was this whole Buff thing. So he's obviously laying in the ring. It's a legit scary neck injury here. They got a gurney out there that no one seems to understand how to use until Doug Dillinger comes into the ring and is able to unfold it the way it's supposed to be unfolded.
It's like a bunch of prop medical staff. It's like we don't know what we're doing here.
We're not sure here. Then they actually show the replay because I'm like, it didn't look like it was that bad. And then I look and he jumps over him and he's kind of coming down and Buff it slips in Buff's head, hits the back of Rick Steiner's back. And it compresses his neck, and it looked ugly. It looked ugly.
It did.
Slow motion definitely does it justice,
right? And they showed it twice, which I was a little surprised by, but it was a little strange. We are unfortunately going to miss a Chris Benoit versus Psychosis match, which they're going to let us know. Heenan is easily the most concerned out of the commentary team. I mean, he's saying like, "Do you guys want me to go down there and talk to him? You want me to go down there?" He ends up going down there and talking to Craig Leathers. He calls it a cervical spine injury. It's basically later diagnosed as severe damaged vertebrae, and he developed spinal shock, which actually put him in a wheelchair and a neck brace for a period of time.
How long is he out for?
He comes back in July with a neck brace and stuff like that, and starts to use it in the storyline. So he's out for a couple months, but obviously it was very scary at the time. They cut back to the commentary team, and even they're just a little bit off their game. You can tell everybody's like really not sure how to handle this and very distraught. Tony does try to change the subject at one point, discuss Hogan and the NWO and NWO factions. We go to another commercial. Paramedics are here. Finally, they decide that they're going to go back and replay a lot more, I think, than they planned with this Hogan Savage match from Nitro.
Because I feel like they played a chunk of what they've already showed us.
They did. So. You're right. Yeah, they did. So we see a little bit of that earlier, the chair and the whipping of the belt and the elbow drop from Hogan. At one point, Savage is going to get a rude awakening from Disciple. And then, of course, Disciple is going to hit the chart buster, or, the stunner, if you want to call it that, on the belt. Which, I got to admit, that might be the first time I've ever seen somebody, stun somebody on a belt like that. And I thought it was kind of a cool visual. No? You guys agree?
That is, I was trying to think of if Stone Cold ever did that, but I think it would take too long to set up.
Because the stunner is so fast, whereas the Apocalypse, which is what the Disciples' stunner is called, he kind of sets it up like he's almost like he's setting up a pedigree. Like he puts all the pieces and parts together for it and then does the move.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I agree. It did look cool, but I think unfortunately the Apocalypse version of the stunner is the only version that probably you could get away with doing that.
What about the Chartbuster?
Oh, the Chartbuster's fast too, though. That's more of a stunner.
Okay, fair enough. Of course, then Nash is going to come out. He's going to set Hogan up for the power bomb, but before he does, Bischoff's going to kick him like a 5-year-old, like kicking him. And it was so funny because, like,
hey man,
Bischoff
he's a black belt.
Well, he is. That's the thing. And like Nash is completely no-selling it. Like it's literally like a child like hitting you when you're like trying to do something. So Nash finally like pushes him out of the way. Then he's going to power bomb Hogan. He's going to play Savage on Hogan, and Bret Hart's going to come out. He's going to attack Nash. He's going to put Hogan on Savage. That's going to get the 3 count. Piper's going to come out and basically taunt and yell at Hart for a while. Hart, of course, is going to attack Piper. That's sort of the replay we see. This, of course, alludes to the whole, what is Bret Hart doing? Is he joining the NWO? Why is he siding with Hogan? Schiavone wants to hear or see from Hart anymore. And that's sort of the whole replay. And what do you guys, before we move on, because this is basically, this whole time they're basically getting Buff out of the ring. They do at one point announce that he's regained some movement and could be okay, so there's a little bit more relief there. But we left Thunder last week wondering if Macho Man had a shot at beating Sting, and now here we are a week later, and Hogan is your champ. How do you guys feel about the way that this is all played out? Because, Hoagie, to your point, you made this last week, Sting got pushed into, his Sting being your world champ was pushed to the back burner, and now he's not even your champion. It's kind of an afterthought.
So there's 2 things I took from this, and I almost want to let Haddix actually go first because I actually have a gripe. So actually, Haddix, go ahead if you have anything.
I really have not, I feel like I'm lacking not watching, Nitro, or never have had watched Nitro. So this stuff is all kind of new to me. You know what I mean? Like as far as WCW champions go, I have 15 episodes of Thunder to go with. You know what I mean? So it does seem odd that they would change titles the day after back to Hogan instead of somebody else. But at the same time, I think I commented on the tag match, which I forgot to say. I feel like Luger hasn't been in championship talks for a while either. And I mean, I feel like he's a big name. It's like it all seems weird to me, but I guess I have nothing to really base it off of when it comes to WCW. So
the 2 main things I got from this was, one, once again, I feel bad for Sting. I think this is as over and as amazing and as cool of a character as the Black Crow, the Crow Sting is. This was, since the beginning, a completely botched, or at least except for the beginning when he made his return, Sting did everything he could with this character to make it cool. I think WCW itself just buried this character to the ground and then just kind of became an afterthought. This guy was supposed to be like an almost menacing, almost like teetering on psychotic Batman-ish type of character, where he's a vigilante that is ready to really hurt people, for the sake of WCW. And now he is not even going to be talked about for a while. We'll find out later what the next thing for the Stinger is, which is really nothing that crazy to be excited about. The other thing has been the whole premise of Bret Hart the past couple weeks has been he wants to be world champion. He just wants to have a fair shot. And that seems to contradict everything when he turns heel, it's to help Hogan win the title. That seems to me like that's a really weird swerve. I like swerves. I like it when things are, not as they seem, but it just seems like if he really kind of wants to be world champion, which I assume in the end he does, the last thing he'd want to do is bury that belt further and further into the NWO. And especially if he's going to align himself with the NWO in a sense now, the last thing that he's probably going to get a chance at is the world title.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only way that they could save that is if it came out that he made a deal with Hogan that if he got Hogan the title, he would get the first opportunity for it. That, to me, I think would be a saving grace. Here's your ulterior motive is I knew I could get a shot against the title. I made a deal with Hogan, and that's it. But I don't have a feeling that that's going to happen.
I don't recall him getting a world title match for a while still.
Yeah, I don't either, but we'll see. After this, though, after all of that craziness happens, Buff is out of the ring. We need to get back to some action. So here we are. It's Evan Courageous and Horace. No better way to get us back into the mood for wrestling, right?
Yeah, screw Chris Benoit and Psychosis that got canceled.
Of course, they want to let us know who Horace is. Haddix, I think this is going to be your first introduction to Horace, and you probably do not know who Horace is at all, right?
No, nor Evan. So,
Okay. So Horace, they're showing a replay from Spring Stampede where apparently Eagle-Eye Tony Schiavone recognized Horace throughout the match as the guy carrying the cables for the cameras. Of course, during the end of the match, everybody in the flock is attacking DDP, and he's fighting them all off. And Horace is going to make his appearance, interfere. This is going to lead to Raven winning the match, costing DDP the title. So, of course, this Horace match with Evan Courageous ends very quickly as DDP is going to come out and Diamond cut everybody, including the referee. And then he's going to cut a promo on Raven, trying to get Raven to come out and fight him. Raven's going to start to come out, then walk away, and DDP's going to talk about how he walked out on his sister and then say his mother, trying to taunt him into fighting, but Raven walks off, and DDP's going to basically follow him, and that is that.
For what it's worth, I rated this a 5 because DDP did his best Stone Cold and just fucking did his finisher on everybody in the ring, which I always enjoy.
I didn't rate this, but
no, I didn't. It was a joke rating, but
I get it. No, I know you didn't give it a 5-star. I'm sorry, but DDP needs to stop saying he's going to bang people. This is getting.
So I'm
weird.
I'm trying to think back to 1998.
Feel the bang. I always remember Feel the Bang.
I remember Feel the Bang, which right, but I feel like I'm gonna bang you back in '98. Like, I don't know if that was not a vernacular, but I feel like that. I don't know. That just when did bang become a sexual connotation? Was it not in 1998? Like that term? Am I?
It had
totally...
to have been.
I feel like I remember a 13-year-old me talking about banging broads. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time,
this guy.
All you were doing was talking about it, right?
At 13, yeah. But it's the way I'm sorry, but when he's like, look, I didn't come in here to bang you or bang you. I'm like, oh my God, cut off his mic. This is so weird.
It's very weird. I'm actually trying to find out if I can come up with an answer for you guys about the slang there.
What, the origin of when someone says bang people?
I was Googling it too.
Oh, wait, hang on. I may have found an answer.
You know, they say great minds think alike.
Though the official line is that bang used to mean have sexual intercourse with, was first recorded in 1937. We have heard reports that it goes back to at least 1677 in a play by Alfred Bean entitled The Rover. We'll both lie with her and then let me alone to bang her.
So basically we're saying it's a little bit before 1998.
It's a few hundred years before. So DDP was just really sexually frustrated or something back in the mid-90s.
He wanted to know if Goldberg could be banged. I wonder if he ever found out.
So that's a little history lesson for you all there. And after this, we're going to get Macho Man interviewed by Tony Schiavone. Where basically Macho Man's going to call Hogan scum. Say Bret Hart is nuclear scum, which I guess it must be a much higher level of scum.
Nuclear level, dude.
And then he's also going to say Hart is a loser. So really tough fighting words from Macho Man. And then when you're talking about Bret Hart, if you don't say best there is, was, and ever will be, and somewhere in your promo, you're not cutting the right promo against him. And Macho Man, at least to his credit, does the most unique way of bringing it up. Where he basically says he is the best there is, was, and ever will be at being a con man. So, well done, Macho Man.
It was a cool looking. It was a cool shoe because he was talking about like you're overpaid and like underrated.
Yeah, this is what he
or
said.
Unproven.
Unproven, overpaid, and this is when he said you're a total mark for your own publicity there. So
talking to Hoagie.
That's right. After this, we're going to get a special look at Goldberg, which is basically just scenes from his match against Raven on Monday night, where he wins the United States title, which, of course, the promo ends with him raising it above his head in victory, and it's upside down. It's just, come on, Goldberg. 75 wins, man. You're winning your title.
One job.
This is your big moment. You're raising the title above your head, and it's fucking upside down. Like, how do you do that? How do you do it? That said, Goldberg is here. He's your fighting. He's your defending United States champion.
Hold on. Sorry, real quick.
Okay.
So does he at some point lose this title?
Or, if we're going to go ahead on this, no, he does not.
Right.
He relinquishes it.
Oh, okay. I was just saying because he doesn't. I know at some point he wins the world title.
I think dude. First of all, spoilers. You're gonna yell at me about it.
Come on,
second of all,
seriously, guys.
Come on, dude. We're months away from that. But no, I think the whole rule is that if you have two singles titles in WCW, you keep what's considered. I think you get to choose which one you've won most recently, and you have to relinquish the other one.
One of those WCW. Well, didn't Nash have two titles at once?
I mean, if
it was a tag title, maybe. I don't remember. I don't remember anybody like holding on to two titles unless it was like a cruiserweight and a TV title because it's two different weights.
Late WCW, like 2000-ish, when
Nash was probably booking, he probably just held all the titles.
No, Lance Storm. Remember, Lance Storm came in and he had like 3 different titles at one point or something.
Dude, R.I.P. Lance Storm. I know he's alive, but still.
Right.
R.I.P. Lance Storm. He's so underappreciated.
I was curious because the whole undefeated thing, and I was like, I know he didn't have two titles at once. So anyway,
I think once you're the world champion, you defending the United States champion, wouldn't that be just such a disservice to the guy who wins the U.S. championship against the world champion? You know what I mean? I think that's the whole thing that doesn't make any sense to have both titles.
All that said,
unless you dissolve the title and it's one title, you know.
All right, we're overthinking it here, guys.
Yes,
right?
I know.
It's WCW. That said, Goldberg is United States champion, and the man, he's a defending world champ. He'll take anybody on. You know, he was announced last week on Thunder to be the number 1 contender. He beat 75 people to get the opportunity to win that United States champion. So who is the
74.
Next? Okay, fair enough, 74. But he beat a 75th person before he fought that United States title match. That said, when he was granted it, he was 74 wins in a row. Nobody more deserving than Goldberg for that United States title match. So, of course, here he is. He's defending it. Who is your number 1 contender now that Goldberg, 74 wins before this opportunity? Who's he going to defend against? Mike Enos.
Mike Enos.
Mike Enos.
The second most prestigious title in the company, and let's just throw Mike Enos right into the fucking
This
wolves.
is more criminal than Sick Boy getting the title shot. Right?
I'd rather give it to Sick Boy.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I mean, don't get me wrong. Obviously, Goldberg's going to squash a bunch of more guys going forward. Why does the title always have to be on the line? Like, why can't you... Goldberg's just in a match tonight, no title on the line. And then, you know what? Maybe he builds up to a title match at the pay-per-view. And then for the next 3 or 4 matches, the title's not on the line again. Why is it always considered a title? Every freaking... Their stories and matches would be so much more entertaining if they didn't put the title on the line in those matches. Because it leaves a little more to the imagination.
Yeah.
Like, maybe Jericho's not going to win this match because the Cruiserweight title's on the line and he's got a match with Prince Iaukea coming up. So maybe Iaukea interferes and Jericho loses. But now they always put the title on the line. So in the event let's say Jericho was a champ and they didn't put the title on the line that night, but he's got a title match in 2 weeks, guess what? He's probably losing that match because it's a non-title match and they specifically called it out. I just don't understand this. Obviously, Spear, Jackhammer, Enos isn't going to win this match. Star and 3/4 for me. It was a standard Goldberg match, but my biggest gripe, of course, with the title always having to be on the line. And we're going to, every week now, the U.S. title is going to be on the line on Thunder, and it's going to be against a fucking jobber, and it's going to make me mad every week.
I gave it a 2, which has become my new standard Goldberg match. Nothing else to add.
Yeah, I think at this point, now that he's a champion, I think the 2-star has to be if everything goes fine, because now there's I guess there's some weight to his matches because he's got gold now. I thought it was a decent title defense. He looked good. I had to, once again, you gotta give props. You gotta call it when you see it, man. He is Hacksaw Jim Duggan over, and the crowd's crazy about it.
Hacksaw Pop for sure. You got X-Pac Heat and you got Hacksaw Pop,
And they're chanting his name. They're not doing the chants of Goldberg, but it's so weird to hear the way they're chanting Goldberg right now. It's like it doesn't feel right.
Because I think later on they start piping in the Goldberg chants, and that's probably part of the reason why it sounds different then, because it's not completely legitimate.
I see what you mean. So you're telling me that Goldberg wasn't actually the fans coming up with that?
I mean, at one point it might have been, and then they just made it louder and piped it in there to make it sound a lot louder than it was. There's a lot of reasons why Goldberg loses steam, and the piped-in chants, the inflated record are some of the reasons where fans started like, everything was working out great. Why did you have to go and try to make it bigger than it already was and just let it be its own thing?
Right.
But Haddix, did you give your rating? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I gave it a 2 and
Okay.
just had no extra comments. So.
Yep. All right. Fair enough. After this, we're going to zoom in on a fan who is cosplaying as Hollywood Hogan, which Hoagie I thought was originally going to be good artwork for this episode, but
dude,
really
moment I saw this, was like, oh, come on, why does it have to be one episode with two good
great
artworks?
moments. Yeah.
So
really.
we'll tweet one and we'll put the other one out for.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to do it. Maybe even tweet out a couple, an animated GIF of Lex.
Oh no, it's gonna be like a mashup. That's probably what it's gonna be.
We're gonna let you guys know Nitro next week because of I think NBA playoffs right now.
Yeah, it was NBA playoff. Yep.
Nitro is gonna be on 12:30 to 1:30 in the morning on Monday for an hour, and then 6 to 8 on Tuesday in the evening for the other 2 hours. I don't know about you guys, but that sounds exhausting to me. Like, who's gonna stay up to watch an hour of Nitro at 12:30 in the morning?
Dude, marks like us.
Back then
school.
we probably would have, though. Yeah.
And then Thunder is going to be preempted for baseball season. We're not going to have Thunder for 2 weeks, so it's going to return on May 14th. So sucks for Thunder, but don't worry, guys. We'll be back just next week because we have the power to go on to the next episode. Now we'll move into our main event. Scott Steiner, accompanied to the ring by Vincent, who, for years I always thought Vincent was really overpaid, but the dude is one of the busiest guys on the roster. So, well, good for him. I guess.
Dude's getting a lot of TV time.
Is he like a retired wrestler or something, or what?
I mean, he really, even when he was in WWF, he was like Ted DiBiase's bodyguard valet. He wrestled.
You want to call it what it is?
He wrestled a little bit, but yeah, I mean, not much. So yeah, more often than not, he was just like a glorified valet and not a very good one, comparing it to some of the greats in the past. He's going to carry out 2 trophies for Scott Steiner. Commentary team's going to focus on Sting and say, where's his allegiance lie with this NWO split up? Is he taking one side? Is he with WCW? Where's he at? And, Hoagie, you had a laugh about Heenan, discussing his inside sources.
Oh yeah. So yeah, they were talking about how, he thought that, I think it was Lee Marshall was talking about the Scott Steiner hasn't even talked to his parents yet about the fact that he has left to go to NWO and turn on his brother, and then Heenan was like, no, I was told that he did already talk to his parents, and Lee's like, and then Tony's like, well, then you must have bad sources. So then Heenan's like, well, my source is Mike today.
It's a really classic line. Heenan is so good with that shit. At this point, we're gonna get our first and only sign of the night. And
well done, Columbia, South Carolina. Not good on the signs. Good Hogan cosplay though.
Good cosplay. Their sign was Kroger for life, is NWO for life, and I'm only putting it on there hoping they're talking about the grocery chain and not some guy whose last name is Kroger or a nickname that's Kroger. And if it is, then I remove this as a actual sign and say, Columbia, South Carolina, your signs are fucking awful.
And we've been going a couple of weeks with how bad the signs have been. I think somewhere in Tallahassee wasn't good.
Yeah,
Tennessee wasn't good.
Last week was Fargo was on fire. They had like 10 signs.
Yeah.
But the past couple before that had been bad. This match, Scott Steiner's going to attack Sting right from the get-go. Sting's going to do his 5-count punch in the corner, which just infuriates Kyle and I. Scott Steiner's going to hit the low blow that Heenan's going to chalk up to spasms.
I love Heenan so much.
Oh, Heenan's great. Eventually, Sting's going to do the Stinger Splash, lock on the Scorpion Deathlock, and Conan, of course, is going to sprint from the back and end this match in a DQ. I mean, Vincent's right there. If you want to end this match with the bullshit DQ, why not Vincent? I give it a star and 3/4. I feel like sometimes they're not even trying to come up with a real finish for these main events. We're 15 straight, 14 DQs, 15 non-clean finishes. Why Conan? I don't know. I don't understand this at all. Conan was not involved whatsoever. He comes out. This was just dumb, weird, pointless. Star and 3/4.
I totally understand it because if you ever, I've heard interviews with Conan, and he's always said that one of the things he always did when he was in the NWO or WCW was try and get as much camera time as possible because that's what helps you catapult your career. You got to be on TV. People need to know that you exist. I'm pretty sure he was probably like, "Hey, I haven't done anything on this show. Can I just like run down and interview in the main interfere in the main event of this match?" I'm sure someone's like, "I don't give a shit." Sure,
maybe that's why Conan decided to do it, but like from a storyline or any kayfabe sense, like does it make any sense that Conan is the one member of the NWO to interfere in this match?
No, absolutely not. No,
and that's my point there.
Oh yeah, I agree. I'm just telling you why Conan probably was the one that went down there. I gave this 2 stars. It was okay. I really didn't. Once again, I think we've understood that. I don't think a Sting beating Steiner or Steiner beating Sting, even if it was like a chicken shit heel way of doing it, I don't think that was going to progress any kind of storyline. So a DQ finish is probably. I feel like a lot of these main events are just have DQ finish, written all over it, especially with Vincent being there already. I do agree with the whole fact that look, that's Vincent's main job. Don't take away the only work he has. Wasn't a very eventful match, but I thought it was all right. I'm not 100% sure about why this match was booked. Normally a main event should have some weight to it, even if it's a grudge match or a title or something. But this was basically just Scott Steiner having a match against Sting. Like there was nothing between the two of them.
And this match was booked from the beginning. Like we knew this was the main event coming into the night, and it just seemed it wasn't like it was because of the Buff match kind of screwed things up, and this was already promised. Like this was scheduled as the main event. And it didn't make any sense.
And from a wrestling standpoint, I guess I can say, that'd be a cool match to watch. But I feel like there's got to be some storytelling, and there really isn't, especially now with Sting being like 5th on the totem pole as far as like people with decent storylines, which really, really is a shame considering he's been without the world title for less than a week.
I gave this 2.5, and it might be a little high, but I think I also threw in. Well, I guess first off, I thought the match itself was pretty decent or pretty good. Obviously Sting and Scott Steiner both know how to wrestle, so the match itself was good. It didn't. I'll agree with you, Hoagie. It really didn't make sense when they said this was the main event. It did seem kind of odd. I did like that Sting actually finally talked. This was after the match, which we'll get into, and kind of said where he was at with things. So I think I might have thrown that into my rating a little bit, which bumped it up. But yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. DQ finish again. And I think I would be, we said this last week, I would be okay with a DQ finish every week if it was a good story that made sense.
Last week's made sense. Right.
Yeah. But this just was a DQ finish to be a DQ finish, which was stupid. So, but I did give it 2.5.
Let me ask you guys this. We're now 15 episodes into Thunder. We've yet to have a clean finish. What episode is it when we have a clean finish? Anyone want to make a guess?
I'm gonna what the actual episode number is?
No, yeah, I mean, how many more episodes till we get a clean finish? Right?
I think eventually Goldberg is the last match of the night, and that will be a clean finish.
Okay, so you think it's a Goldberg match?
I think a Goldberg match is the last match.
So Goldberg main eventing Thunder. That could probably happen sooner than later.
That's what I'm saying. I think once he gets booked high enough, he will be the last match, and and that'll be the last non-DQ.
See, I still don't think that happens for a while because I think just putting an NWO guy against a WCW guy has been the tried and true method of almost every single, unless it's like once again a title match as like Benoit and DDP, which would be like a borderline pay-per-view match. But yeah, I think I do agree that. But even so, Goldberg can still win by DQ. But I think that'll be the first time we get one because I think they'll think that people would still love it. Like I think they think people want DQ finishes for some reason, which doesn't make any sense. But that's my guess, and I don't know when. Shit, that could be 10 more episodes from now. 20 more episodes.
It could easily be 10 episodes.
Yeah,
I was going to put the over under at 10 right now.
Yeah.
I would probably say. I would go with the under at this point.
Taking the under on 10 episodes. We'll see.
I'll take the over.
We'll revisit this at episode 25. So keep that in your mind, fans.
Watch next week be a non-DQ finish.
We'll have to wait and see.
That'd be right. I'd nail it.
After this match, Rick Steiner's going to come out. He's going to chase Scott Steiner to the back. The the Giant's going to come out and help Sting clear out the rest of the NWO. Of course, Conan Vincent and Scott Norton were all in there attacking Sting. This is going to lead, as you mentioned, Haddix. Sting gets on the mic and talks about, he says, after this barroom brawl, I want to buy everyone a round on me. And basically says Nash is a comedian, should do stand-up, and says Nash is not too sweet. And then says that me and the Giant versus Hall and Nash for the tag team titles at Slamboree. In case you guys forgot, Nash and Hall are the tag team champs. They've been tag team champs since Scott Steiner and Rick Steiner were still tagging together. That's how long it's been, and Nash hasn't worn the belt in how long?
So I'm pretty sure Scott Hall, in memory of our boy Louis Piccoli, just buried all 4 belts with Louis Piccoli.
Are they doing this because they're kind of trying to like mask the Scott Hall issues, or do they just not give a shit about these? So he's gone,
I think part of it is they don't care about the titles, and then also I think they're trying to throw Sting a bone here. That's my guess. Is Sting's out of the world title picture? We want him still involved in something. We'll have him feud with Nash and put these titles on the line.
Oh,
but that's my guess. I don't know. That was your Thunder. Hoagie, what'd you think about this week's episode?
I feel like I was much nicer about this show as a whole than you guys. Outside of the somberness of Buff Bagwell's injury, though, I thought there was actually a pretty hype Thunder. I thought there was a lot of excitement with it. I think that the commentators did the best they could with, kind of a bad situation of having probably 40 minutes of actual time being taken away from the show. Once again, we got the belt getting spray painted. We had most of the big players on the show, minus probably Scott Hall. And then obviously Nash wasn't there, but he had plenty of TV time and promos and other spots where he's mentioned. I felt at least the match quality was probably better than average for Thunder. I think the only one I would say is what the fuck match was by Barbarian and Prince. But that was more because I didn't like the fact that they chose Prince as the guy to take the kick of fear and pushing this weird storyline that we never even knew about between Barbarian and the missing Ming. But I almost forgot that about the match Barbarian and Prince because it was before the whole Buff Bagwell thing. So it's almost like they completely like erased the Barbarian and Prince Iaukea match from my mind, anyways, because of everything else that happened after that. We did get a DQ finish, but the story's continued, even though there's some others that start on Thunder. My gripe right now is that, like you said before, Kaiser, you don't always have to defend the title if the champion is wrestling. I think you are crippling yourself storyline wise if the title is always on the line, because I think it makes sense that sometimes the champion can lose and puts him in a place of weakness when he finally has to face somebody later on. But yeah, I mean, there's a couple other things that I had here, but the whole promo thing with Hogan with the title, and then let's talk about how that happened later. Just a weird Tarantino bullshit that I really didn't care for.
That was a good rundown. And I didn't necessarily not like this episode. I just thought it was hard to rate because there was. What was it, Kaiser? 23, 30, 25 minutes or something of time. If that didn't happen and they just showed a replay for 25 minutes, I'd say this was an absolute horrible show because they wasted so much time. But obviously that was a very serious thing that happened. The part of the show that we did get, minus the Buff Bagwell stuff, I thought was pretty decent. I agree with Hoagie. I thought, I don't know if you guys agree with me. I thought Sting talking after the match seemed just a little anticlimactic. Like, so Giant comes out, helps him clear the ring, and then he gets on the mic for a decent promo. Like, it wasn't like a quick 30-second, like, Nash, I want you next week or whatever. And you know what I mean? It was like, I feel like it kind of just took everyone down. Like, everyone got hyped when the Giant ran out there, and then all of a sudden, and then Giant did his thing where he kept running back and forth on the ropes, which was weird. But other than that, I thought the show was decent. It definitely extended some storylines. So, and my one note is, I know that some people join the NWO and et cetera, and I just don't know when it is. So I do find myself excited to see when that happens and who it is and that kind of stuff.
To echo on the whole thing with Sting, the whole weird thing about Sting talking is that it's now looking like he's supposed to be, once again, like I said before, kind of like this brooding, new kind of dark character. But then when he's on the mic, he's sounding like Surfer Sting again, and it just seems like a really weird. Like he's supposed to be this new transformed character, but now he just sounds like a goofball again. But you know, at the end, at least he's not threatening to bang people.
That is true. And for me, I mean, like you guys said, you had the scary incident with Buff Bagwell, so it's a little hard to kind of rate this show. I think they did the best with what they could do. I thought there were some good matches, with the exception of a pointless main event, and you're kind of resetting storylines now as we change focuses to Slamboree. So we'll see where it goes forward, and you know, and how things build up. I'm not looking forward to the Outsiders versus Sting and Giant right now, but maybe they'll hype me for it as time goes on. And that's gonna be our show this week. So if you haven't subscribed to us yet on iTunes or Google Play, go do that. Leave us a rating. Let us know how we're doing. You can always follow us on Instagram and Twitter, where Hoagie subtweets himself out there and uses burner accounts followed up. So feel free to call him out on that. You can always go to thundercraps.com for all of our past episodes, social media accounts, all that fun stuff. And go out there. You know, Thunder might not happen for a couple of weeks, but you'll tune in to episode 16. It'll be May 14th, 1998. Nitros may have happened in the meantime, but we're gonna come right out and follow it up the best way we can, and as confused as possible, I'm sure. And that's it. So for Josh Haddix and Kyle Hoagland, I'm Josh Kaiser, and we will see you next time on the Thunder Craps podcast.
Have a good Thursday.
See you later, you nuclear scum.